Welcome to my channel. My name is Nairi and I talk about adoption and fostering childhood trauma, and check out my channel. There are loads and loads of videos on all sorts of subjects, but today I'm going to talk about parental shame, guilt, the thing that you feel like that you're not doing good enough, you're not doing a good enough job. Okay, so let me just explain. We've had our boys since they were 2 and 3 as foster boys, and now they're nearly 15 and 16. So we've got the whole spectrum of how life has changed, and all sorts of things have happened, and I'm sure you'll be aware that they would be. And today I want to talk about that feeling of, have I done it good enough? Am I making the right decisions? And what do I need to do next? So the things that have changed for us now as the boys are older is obviously they're becoming more independent, they're making more decisions on their own. And I guess this is a time when my husband and I have to stand back and take stock of what decisions are we going to let them make on their own and what are we going to put a stop to. Now, I've already got 5 birth children, so I know that as children get into adulthood, they're going to make their own decisions anyway. They're going to fly the nest. Hopefully that's a sign of the fact that they're independent, maybe not, but they're going to probably fly the nest, and you're going to have to step back and let them make their own decisions in life. That is very, very difficult, very difficult. And sometimes when they're adults, they may make decisions different from you, but you just got to let that go, because they are them and you are you, and you're not the same person. So as the boys have grown up, we've tried to guide them, we've tried to show them what we think is the right way to be, the right things to do, taking them places that we think are appropriate, put a stop on things that we think aren't, sort of train them to understand what is the best things to watch on the telly, how to use their phones, their computers, etc., etc. But there comes a point when you can't do that anymore, and we're just tipping into that point now. We're just kind of tipping over into that point. So let me give you some examples of how things are changing for us. So recently, very, very recently, something happened with my eldest son, which I won't go into. It was very concerning, and I sat down with him and said, you could have told me before that happened. You could have told me before you did that. And he sort of looked at me, and I thought, you know what? No, I don't think you are going to tell me anymore. I don't think you are going to come to me now. I think that you've changed and you need to be able to open out to people outside of the family. Now, I could feel very guilty about that. And I think, I did feel guilty. I felt guilty about the fact that, we'd gone round full circle and something had happened again, yet again. Was it serious? I guess in the scale of things, no. Is it concerning? Yes. So the whole guilt of, well, what have I done? What have I done wrong? What could have I done differently? If we'd been there at the time, would he have done something differently? If we hadn't have sent him there, would it have been different? All the questions get asked, don't they? So as parents, we look back over our experience of parenting, and it may be that you're early in the stages of adoption, or you're just, a parent, you're not an adopter, and you're early in the stages, and you will find yourself comparing to what other parents are doing, reading things, looking at your home, what you do, and thinking about whether you're good enough, whether you're doing it good enough. And I don't really care who you are. I think every single one of us does that at some point or another. Some of us are more confident about our parenting styles, and perhaps we're more confident in ourselves, so that we don't do that as much. But I think most parents do have some sort of shame or guilt, especially if they think things aren't going very well. And so that was the situation for me, that shame of, that feeling of let down. I've let him down, I've let myself down. Not so much what would others think, because this is something that he wouldn't discuss, but more I just want things to be better for him, and we experience that a lot with our adopted sons because of their start. I think that I feel the same about my birth children, but with my adopted sons, I want even more for things to go better for them, because I don't think they deserve to have any more hardship. But here's the big point of the whole video, really, but don't stop watching now, is that you can't change everything for them, and you can't make everything right for them, and you can feel as much shame or guilt as you like, but the reality is that they do have to make some decisions for themselves, and the reality is that you can't take everything away for them. So the decision then came for me is to, what am I going to do now? So I sat down with him and said, look, I just feel like I've got to the point where I've done enough therapeutic input with you. So I don't mean therapeutic parenting, because Tim and I are trying that out all the time. You know, sometimes we'll come in a little bit harder and sort of be blunt and say, look, no, that's not the right way to behave. But a lot of the time we're having to explore therapeutic parenting, trying to be empathetic, trying to put ourselves in their shoes, you know, using pace. So most of the time we're doing that. But I mean therapeutic input where, you know, often I'll sit down with my sons and say, tell me why this happened. Tell me how you feel about this. Tell me what it is that's driven you to do this, and allow them to open out, which doesn't always work, but, you know, we give it a go. So really what I was saying to him is, I don't think that I'm that person anymore. I don't think I can do that anymore, because I would have maybe misread, I would have maybe seen this situation coming and been able to help you. And I don't think I've been able to do that this time. So in the past, he said to me, I do not want to go for therapy. I do not want to talk to anybody. Now, I get that about the boys. They're both very avoidant, and if they cannot talk about something, they definitely would take that route. And I think over all the years they have had therapeutic input, but it's always been from an art therapy point of view, or a group therapy point of view, or, you know, thrive at school, or you know, all those things. It hasn't been, I'm going to talk to a stranger, and that's their worst case scenario. Because when they were very little, all sorts of professionals were in and out the home all the time, trying to get them to open out, and they never would. As little boys, they never would. So it's always been a no. But I said to him, I think the time has come that we really, really need to find some way for you to open out to someone else. And there's kind of like that letting go, for me to let go of the responsibility of his overall well-being. So that doesn't diminish what I have to do, but it does let out the ropes to someone else, which is, I find, really hard. Because if that's a mistake, or we get the wrong person involved, it could be the worst thing we ever did. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I happen to know someone that I was talking to about this, and then they pointed me in the direction of a counsellor that they thought would really fit well with him. And he's been there for one session, and it seems to be going well. I think afterward he struggled because he then went out to do something else, and perhaps that was a mistake, but I think overall it was a success. So we'll see. Now, as parents, we think that we are going to be the only ones that help our children to stand or fall. And I think when children are very young, that's more the case, because we are making daily decisions for them. We are caring for them. We are getting them dressed. We are feeding them. We're deciding what food they're going to eat. We're deciding what games they're going to play, and we're in control of generally speaking, in control of the remote control. When they're very young, they haven't got phones, although, you know, that's a bigger question. But we have so much more control over what our children do. Now, if you are getting to the point where your child is +8 years and plus, you will begin to realise that every little decision that you would want to happen for your child is not now happening. They're getting influenced by peers, even by teachers, to be honest. Sometimes teachers can throw a spanner in the works, and you think, why did you say that? Why did you encourage them to do that? Relatives, friends, you name it, they're going to get influenced. And as they get older, they've got to make their own decision about whether they want to listen to your voice, the voice of friends and peers, the voice of their community, the voice of the world at large. Which way are they going to go? Now, what will happen, more than likely, is they'll take a mix of everything. You would hope they will take a little bit of mix of what you've given them, a mix of what they've learnt from some friends, from some professionals, what they see happening in their community, and what they see happening in the world. You would hope a balanced individual will take a little bit of everything. You don't want them to be carbon copies of you. You might think you do, but maybe if you look at the mistakes you've made in your life, or choices you would have made differently, you don't want them to be a carbon copy of you. You want them to find their own identity. Now, being adopted or fostered makes that doubly difficult, of course, because as I've mentioned in other videos, they are going to also have identification and history with another family. Now, they may not know nothing about that family, and they may not actually want to know anything about that family, or they might be very involved with them and they might have regular contact. So that's going to put another thing in the mix, okay? So what I'm really trying to say here is that shame and guilt is not good for you. Shame and guilt has to be something that you let go of. It's really hard to do. I find it really, really hard to do, to think that I really want to do my best for the boys, and sometimes it does not work. You know, sometimes I think, have we made any progress in that area? And I think, no, we haven't, okay? Let me give you another example. It's not a very nice one, but you'll probably laugh. I mean, you will, maybe you will, or maybe you won't. So I had to go and sleep in a different room the other night, okay, a couple of nights ago, because we decorated our room and I've got breathing difficulties, okay? So go and sleep in the other room, and all evening was feeling like a little bit off colour, just not quite right, okay, not feeling quite well. So I got to stick a mask on at night, okay? Less than pleasant, but it's got to be done. Anyway, in the middle of the night, I feel like I'm going to be sick. So I've got to whip off my mask, and rather than be in the bedroom where we've got a bathroom alongside, I'm in the main bathroom, which the boys' bedrooms are either side, okay? Now, without going into loads of detail, I'm really sick. I mean, it only happened once, but it was really loud and really sick, and I felt really awful. Now, I felt there's no way that both of those boys can't hear this, and I really wanted a bit of help, okay? I know it's disgusting, but I didn't want help from them, but I would ideally have liked my husband to come and just give me a bit of a hand, because I wanted to make sure that everything was clean and everything was fine for the next morning, and that if necessary, you know, I needed to change of clothes. Fair enough, right? Didn't hear a Bebo from anybody, and I was too poorly to worry about it, so got back into bed. The next day I hear that my younger son has actually heard it all, okay? So it wasn't well enough to have this out with him, but you know, we've taught the boys to try to be empathetic. We've taught them that by doing it for them. So when they're poorly, it's very much, how are you? Do you want anything to eat and drink? You know, can I get you anything? I know that's what a mum does, but you know what I mean? We go above and beyond. If they're not well, they don't go to school. You know, we're not forcing them out when they're not well. So we do take care of our boys when they're not well. And to be fair, I don't know whether they're iller than other children, but, you know, they have their fair share. And especially the younger one that we're talking about, fair share of kind of flu-y symptoms and stuff like that. So when I was well enough, I said, look, you could have at least come and ask me if I was all right, or go and get someone, couldn't you? And he just looked at me and he knew. And for once, he did not even answer back. He knew, okay? But the point I'm trying to make here is, I can't make him do the things that I've trained him to do as a parent. I would expect him to understand, and actually the following day, even when he saw me, he didn't ask me how I was. That was the bigger issue, actually, because I think that if someone's being sick, you might not want to be near them, because I'm sure you're all going to comment, well, he might not want to go near you. But I suppose the bigger issue is, I knew that he wasn't concerning himself, because the next day he didn't even ask how I was. Now, you might go, yes, well, that's what my children do, and yes, it might be. It might be. And that's the point I'm trying to make, really, is that we expect, you know, a 15-year-old to have some concern for his mum. He's not very well at night. But the reality is, that's not really, it's not sunk in. And I can't make that sink in. And when he gets older, if he has relationships or he needs to be caring for someone, if he isn't, it's not for want of trying. But he's just not going to do it. So maybe his empathy isn't fully developed. More than likely that is true. I know that's true from my older son. It hasn't. So there's possibly very, very good reasons for it. So I'm not trying to blame game. I suppose what I'm trying to say is that as a parent, you can't have shame or guilt for how things turn out in the end, or whether you think you're doing a good enough job or not. Because actually, when it comes down to it, the decisions have to be theirs in the end as they grow up. And that's something you see more as they get older and begin to understand that you can't do everything for them. So I hope that helps you. I hope that helps you. It's been a long old time from coming on the channel. I do apologise. I think Christmas and New Year I needed the break, and then lots of different things have happened, made it really hard to get into a routine. So thank you so much for my members for hanging on in there. Still members, thank you so much. Don't feel you have to continue if you don't want to, but I do. I'm so grateful for the four of you, and I'll see you on my next video. Thank you.